brought to us by SKEINO. We are going to learn to make the SKEINO Spring Bloom Cardi. We can cut away to a picture of the cardigan. It is very cute, very feminine, a lightweight cardigan to wear in warmer weather over tank tops and sundresses. I always wear sweaters like this. I live in Texas and I end up wearing sweaters like this, and I call it air conditioning protection. Anyway, this is a free pattern. If you would like to get your copy of the free pattern and to take a look at the different colorways SKEINO has for the yarn kits for this pattern, just click the little eye in the upper right-hand corner and that'll take you to my website where you will have access to everything. This is a bit more advanced than tutorials we've done with SKEINO in the past. We've only done shawls and scarves in the past, so this is definitely a move in a different direction since it's a garment. But it'll definitely be, should be good for those folks who have been requesting different kinds of tutorials from SKEINO, more advanced things and garments, things like that. I'm going to walk through the construction and the unique things about this sweater, but you will need to have a decent understanding of, you have to have a good understanding of the basics definitely, and a good understanding of shaping while knitting. Like if you have experience in knitting other sweaters or hats or even socks, that will set you up well for this. I guess what the easiest thing to do is to get your copy of the pattern, the free copy of the pattern, and take a look at that and watch the tutorial, and that will give you a good idea if you know that your skill level is ready to start garments, or if you're ready to challenge yourself with this, because I am going to walk you through the hard parts. I don't want to scare anybody off the pattern, but we've done some really simple things. Aside from the Miss Grace shawl, a lot of the things we've done with SKEINO have been just really unique designs, but not really especially complicated designs. So I don't want everyone to think this is just kind of the next step. It's a little more difficult. Anyway, so we have the yarn for this one, which is a merino bamboo blend with a little bit of nylon. It's a beautiful fingering weight yarn with this lovely sheen to it. We have the yarn all hand painted by SKEINO and the free pattern by SKEINO and the tutorial with me. If you again want to get ready with everything you need for this, everything is listed out on my website. Just click the little eye in the upper right hand corner. Oh, and one last thing I want to say is, I say it all the time. I love working with SKEINO. They are really great folks, and they have a new YouTube channel, and they're doing some interesting things on their YouTube channel. Bjorn is the designer there, and he appears in a lot of the videos, giving knitting tips that are unique to his designs, and yeah, just some great knitting tips. And they also have women actually wearing their designs, so you can see what things look like on a body before you decide what you want to knit. They're very cute, very fun videos. I'm going to give you a link to the SKEINO YouTube channel. If you like what you see, be sure to subscribe. They're putting out new videos regularly, so it's a nice active channel to subscribe to, just like mine. Anyway, we're going to get started on talking about the construction of this sweater and how to work kind of the unique things about this sweater, and that's coming up in the next segment. We are ready to get started on this sweater, and it's such a cute sweater and such a unique construction. I think you're going to have a lot of fun knitting it. Before you get started, the first thing you want to do is to knit a swatch, and the gauge in the pattern is listed out in stockinette, so you just knit a little stockinette swatch. You want to wash and block your swatch before you measure the gauge, and I'll tell you right off the bat, if you're using this yarn, it's really easy to get correct gauge because the gauge doesn't really change when you get it wet. So if you have an inch or so on the needles and you give it a quick measure to see if you're on track with gauge, when you get it wet, it really isn't going to change. I mentioned this because the hardest time it is to get gauge is when you knit a swatch, you're on track, you get the swatch wet, and it goes bananas, and it's totally different and stretched out from what it was when you were knitting it. So that's a little heads up from me. First, I want to talk about the very unique construction of this, and then we're going to go through some of the techniques that are unique to this sweater. So let's go ahead and take a look. Here is a schematic from the pattern that I have blown up so that we can take a really close look at just this one section. The way this sweater is knit is that it's cast on at the back bottom, and you knit the lace all the way up to a point where you're going to cast on stitches on both the left and right ends for the sleeves. And that's very cool, I think. It's a great idea to add sleeves. And then you're going to continue up with the lace pattern until you get to this point. Then you're going to bind off stitches at the back of the neckline. And then we're going to continue down these two fronts, which are knit separately. You'll finish one and then go back and finish the other. And then when we get to a point, we will bind off those sleeve stitches and then continue with the lace all the way down to this end. You can see once you fold this in half, if it's like a little origami project matching up B to A, and once you fold this in half and seam up the sides, you have a sweater. And it's a really cool and unique way of keeping the lace flowing all the way through the entire pattern, uninterrupted. And here is, I'm having a hard time thinking of the word, but it is my sample sweater. And take a look at the lace. It is very pretty. It is these little sections of lace broken up with garter stitch and then longer sections breaking those up. Let me see if I can show you against the blocking board background. Yeah, there's the lace pattern. Isn't that pretty? And the colorway that I am using, I know I wrote it down. Purple Iris is the name of the colorway that I'm using here. Isn't that gorgeous? It was so fun to knit too. I really did enjoy it. So that is the basic construction. And this is a little bit more specific. And this is why I think it's important that if you're unsure about your skill level, this is where it's a good idea to watch the video to see if you're up for this. Now, don't be afraid of all of this that you see here. Excuse me. This is the lace pattern. It's actually really simple lace pattern. It's just the same thing over and over. The wrong side rows are all the same. You'll have this part of it memorized in no time. The part I want to focus on is the neck opening here, because we're going to bind stitches off at the neckline, and then we'll just focus on one side because you'll knit the one side before the other. Then you continue decreasing to kind of give a curve to the back of the neckline. And then you'll knit some rows without decreasing. And then we're going to increase to give a curve to the front of the neckline, the front collar area, and then cast on some stitches to finally increase for the cardigan front. Now this is some pretty simple shaping, and the reason that this chart is important is it tells us how to do the shaping while maintaining the lace pattern. And that's probably the part of the sweater that requires the most thought, is keeping the increases and decreases going while maintaining the lace pattern. This chart spells it all out and makes it easy so you don't have to actually figure it out for yourself. But this is where it's important to be able to read the charts. And it's the exact mirror opposite on the other side, but it does make it clear. And I'll tell you, I think the pattern calls for just decreases. If you're on this side, you probably want to use a right-leaning decrease, which is a knit two together. And if you're on this side, you probably want to use a left-leaning decrease, which is an SSK. Just a little note from me. Okay, now we're going to jump right here to a little sample that I have knit up so I can show you a couple of unique things about this pattern. I have a cable needle in my hand I grabbed as a pointer. You don't need a cable needle for this pattern. I just happened, it was the first thing I grabbed. So I have this little bit knit up here to use as an example, and it is just like the back of the sweater will be, except for it's quite abbreviated. There is a garter stitch border, and then you start working lace, and in this first sample, I'm going to show you how to cast on stitches for the sleeves. And it's just the backwards loop cast on, but in case you haven't done it before, you'll be at the end of the row, or you can think of it as the beginning of the next row, and you're going to cast on, I believe, 21 stitches for each sleeve. So I'm going to use the backwards loop cast on with the work in my right hand and my left hand empty. I'm going to grab the yarn and put my thumb on it like this and flip. put my needle into the loop on my thumb and tighten it up. Thumb on the yarn and flip, needle into the loop, tighten it up. It is, it's the kind of cast on that we use when we only have one strand of yarn to work with. It's not a great cast on for like starting a project because there's no knot at the bottom of it, so there's nothing keeping the tension on each stitch. You'll see when you go to knit across it. It's nice to have pointy needles when you work across these stitches. I'll tell you, the pattern, the lace pattern continues right up after you do this cast on, but you don't have to work the lace pattern into the cast on. It's just not very easy to work an SSK into a backwards loop cast on, for example. So I just knit across those 21 stitches in the right after the cast on, and then maintain the lace through the rest of the row. And on the wrong side of the work, when I did the backwards loop cast on this side, you just want to purl those stitches anyway. There's no need to work the lace in the first row because that is actually going to be, the cast on is going to be eaten up in the seam. Anyway, I want to take that out because, let me grab this again. So we've worked through knitting the lace in the back and casting on the stitches for the sleeve. And the next thing we want to do is bind off stitches for the neck. And I want to talk about that. Talk about the math involved in doing that. Now there are different cast on numbers for the different sizes, and so you'll have, I think the bind off number is identical for each size, and so I want to talk about how to figure out where the center stitches are. And I think for this one it's 26 stitches, binding off 26 stitches. So what I did was I took the entire cast on number and divided it by 2 to find the very center stitch. And then I took the entire, I took the number that I want to bind off, divided that by 2. It was 26, and so 26 divided by 2 is 13. So I counted over 13 stitches on this side and placed a marker, and counted over 13 stitches on this side and placed a marker. So now I can take out the center marker. I don't really need it anymore. And I know that I have the center 26 stitches marked here for the bind off. So what I'll do is I will knit across and then bind off all of these stitches, and then, well, not knit across, you'll work the lace pattern across. Bind off all these stitches, work the lace pattern across, and then the yarn's going to be attached over to this side of the work, and you'll just continue with the front of the sweater just on this side, and then reattach for the other side. Wow, okay. So that is the basic construction of the sweater, and I've left off the casting on and the lace and things like that. Those are things that are pretty simple to work, and I don't want to cover things that are really simple in the work when they're not necessary to cover. The lace pattern, I have it totally memorized. I can tell you exactly what it is. Knit 2 together, knit 2, yarn over knit 1, yarn over knit 2, SSK. That's the lace pattern because I worked it 8 million times in my sample piece. And we're going to talk more about my sample piece and finishing up in the next segment. Once you finish all of the lace part of the sweater, there's really not a lot to do for the finishing work, but I definitely want to talk about it. I have my piece here, and I want to be sure to show it to you when we're on this camera because it's kind of big to show on the other camera. I have this finished piece here that is the back finished, the sleeves, and then the 2 fronts. And I'm ready to add the front button band at this point. But I wanted to talk a little bit about about that before we get there. The first thing you want to do before you add the button band is to steam this out. You can wet block it if you like, but what I usually choose to do is to just set it out flat on the ironing board or on my blocking board and apply steam from the steam iron without pressing down. In true typical lace fashion, the lace is going to be kind of scrunchy. You're not going to be able to see the whole pattern until you apply some steam to it. And of course, this beautiful yarn, the yarn just relaxes and you can see the beautiful pattern just with a little shot of steam. But the most important thing is, of course, you want to be able to see the pattern, but the more important thing is that you want the sweater to be its full size before you add the button band. You don't want to add the button band around a scrunched up sweater that it hasn't relaxed yet. So you want to get it out to its full size before you seam it or add the front button band. And this one, I've left it like this to show you. It is ready to go. It is ready for me to add the button band and seam the sides, and that'll just take no time. We're going to talk about those two things. Let's go and take a look at the schematic again. So once you have it all steamed out, we have live stitches. That's something that you may or may not have seen. I have my stitches on a stitch holder. This is the bottom of the fronts right here, and the stitches are held on stitch holders. So we have live stitches here and here. And you're going to, the pattern's clear, you're going to knit across, place a marker, pick up and knit stitches here, place a marker, pick up and knit all the way around here, place a marker, pick up and knit here, place a marker, and knit across here. So your circular needles are going to be holding kind of a crazy shape of knitting, but the pattern's really clear about how to increase at A and B so that you end up with really nice right corners on your cardigan at both the front bottom and the front top. And the pattern also is really clear about when and how to add buttonholes for the little buttons. Or if you're like me, I like to leave my cardigans open without buttons, but you have the instructions there for adding the buttons. So then once that is all knit and bound off, you can actually do the seaming, and the folding point is right here. You fold it, and it'll be really clear about seaming up the sides, seaming up, this to this. I mean, if you want it to be a sweater, it'll be obvious exactly where you want to seam, the underside of the arm to the side seams. So it's a simple design, kind of an origami fold in half, match point A to point A design. I think this is such a cute sweater. The yarn is gorgeous. Many thanks to SKEINO for sponsoring this tutorial and letting me use their pattern and their yarn in this tutorial. I can't wait to see your finished sweaters. Good luck.